to approve the low bidder for food kit.
Motion be set. We have a motion by Ms. Ortiz, second by Ms. Rito. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Then motion added on, motion carried. Roll. Motion passed. Nays. New business. Presentation by the parish president, Cedar, regarding the upcoming sales tax renewal for sales tax district one. Cedar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Make sure she can, there we go. Now, this is not an exact science for me. First, I appreciate the opportunity to come before the board and members in the audience to talk about the renewal of sales tax district number 1, which will be on the ballot for April 30th. Before I talk about this proposition, I do want to recognize 2 of our council members, I think, that are here. Mr. Dean LeBlanc, sitting in the middle there, and Mr. Chris Tozan. Every presentation I give, there's council members that come, and I'm not sure why they come. At first, I thought it was to protect me, but then after the presentations, when they critique me, I realize now it's to correct me. So either way, I need a lot of correction and often a lot of protection. I will say this, I'm here to talk about sales taxes, and I was a little bit reticent. I said, man, I just hate going to a big, large meeting like a school board and talk about sales tax. But when I saw Mr. Cairo here, when he talked about insurance rates going up, I said, good. No matter what, I won't be the worst presentation tonight. So, look, parish government had received the same type of report several weeks ago, so we get it, okay? So let me talk a little bit about sales tax district number 1 and our 1 cent sales tax. It is coming on the ballot for consideration by the public on April 30th. Early voting is April 16th. To April 23rd. So if I convince you that this is a good tax, keep these dates in mind. If I don't convince you, stay at home and enjoy them, all right? So what is the proposition? We're asking the voters to approve a renewal of a 1 cent sales tax for 20 years. It's not a new tax, it's a renewal. And the tax is specifically and exclusively dedicated solely for the construction, resurfacing, reconstruction, and maintaining parish roads and bridges within what we call sales tax district number 1. Specifically excluded, even though it's not necessary in the language of the proposition, way back when this tax was first developed, it was felt to be prudent to put a phrase in the proposition that employees' salaries, wages, and benefits were specifically excluded from the use of the money for the road maintenance. And the import of that I will explain later. So what is sales tax district number 1? That is a special taxing district created by the police jury in 1998, now the parish council. Basically, sales tax district number 1 is all of the unincorporated areas of the parish, all of the rural areas. If you live within the municipal limits of any town of Henderson, for example, village of Park, or city of St. Martinville, or city of Breaux Bridge, you're not part of the taxing district. So it's only the rural communities that are part of this district. On July 20th, 2002, the voters of St. Martin Parish approved the imposition of this 1 cent sales tax for sales tax district number 1. The tax took effect beginning October 1, 2002, and it's a 20-year proposition. What that means is if the voters do not approve the renewal of this tax, it goes away on October 1 of this year, 2022. So it's a 20-year proposition. Again, what we're asking you to do is to approve a tax that can only be used for those specific items listed here, in which I articulated earlier. Maintenance of roads, bridges, all within sales tax district number 1. I will tell you that parish government believes this sales tax is probably the most critical tax for parish government. It's probably one of the most critical taxes for St. Martin Parish across the board. And why? Because of its dedication to the maintenance of our infrastructure. And to understand why it is so important, the first thing we have to do is take a step back and just look at the components of the Public Works Department for St. Martin Parish government. What does that consist of? Well, I kind of broke it down for this presentation into various divisions. And I'll list those. We have our overall field supervision, our roads and bridges, our drainage that is part of a road, as well as our asset management, meaning the management of the equipment that you got to use to maintain that infrastructure. The administrative services, let's talk about that a little bit. We've got 2 and a part-time employee that handles all of our public works administration. What that group of people do is they handle all of the calls that we get relative to any issue with public works. They schedule the work. They handle material procurement, office management, maintain our records. And that is critical, especially the clerical and record keeping aspects of this job. Why is it essential and extraordinarily critical? Because if we don't have proper record keeping that addresses procurement, the tracking of overtime, we will not be eligible for any reimbursements through FEMA or any other federal program as a result of any sort of disaster. I mean, and if you've ever, and I'm sure some of the administrative staff of this school board has gone through scoping calls with FEMA and other federal agencies where you have to justify expenditures in the event of an emergency so that you can get a portion of the money that you spent reimbursed. Usually it's only 75%. So the record keeping is critical and absolutely essential. I'll tell this actual story. About 2 years ago, we were at one of those calls, and part of our money we had expended addressed the cost of sand and the cost of the personnel that had to work overtime to distribute the sand. And one of the individuals from FEMA said, well, where did you get the sand? So, oh, we got it from such and such company. No, sir, it's not what I mean. What quarry did you use? Well, I'm a pretty calm, cool, collected guy, but I kind of lost it then when who the hell's going to call a quarry or find out a quarry when you're trying to get sand on the eve of a hurricane, you know? But that just goes to show the importance of maintaining those records and keeping a track so that in the event you have to seek any sort of reimbursement, you can do so. Our field operations, this is administrative work, it's inside the office, now we go outside the office. This is just a bird's eye view or overview of all of our operations. Our field operations, we have 3 field supervisors, 27 equipment operators, 2 mechanics, 2 bridge tenders, a public works technician. We have a vegetation program, a road spraying of 300 miles, canal spraying 150 miles of canals, clipping program. Our roads and bridges, most people are not aware of this. We have in the parish 759 roads. That's 400 plus miles of roadways. In connection with that, we have to maintain 600 plus miles of drainage canals. Just think about that. If you left here and headed east, when you get to 600 miles, you'll be past Florida, past Pensacola, Florida. Just think of a drainage canal that large. We're responsible for maintaining that. 45 bridges in this parish that we have to maintain. public works, forms, and mechanic shops. And this is one item most people aren't aware of, is the lock and dam structures that we have to maintain. We have two of them. One is the Henderson control structure, the other is the Keystone lock structure just south of St. Martinville. Very, very critical structures, not only for water quality and water levels, but for flood control. You know, when we have a drawdown in the basin, that's the Henderson control structure. When there's high water that needs to be diverted into the basin, that Henderson control structures is what's utilized. So that's just a bird's eye view of all of our field operations. And keep in mind the number of roads, 759 roads, the number of canals, 600 plus miles of drainage canals. Also, I want you to think for a minute of how large St. Martin Parish is. Most people don't realize, but St. Martin Parish is second largest parish in Acadiana, and if not all of South Louisiana. We have 738 square miles of land. That doesn't count the waterways. Contrast that to Iberia Parish, 574 square miles. Acadia, 650 square miles. St. Mary, 555 square miles. Compare us to our neighbors to the west, Lafayette, 269 square miles, compared to our 738. Lafayette, 269 square miles. Maybe that's why they got time to come over and take small banks down. Oh, never mind, that's a different issue. I won't go there, okay? I won't go there today, but we will one day soon. All right, let's get back on this. So just understand that we have a lot that we do with our Public Works Department. It's a very important component. It's the most visible component of parish government, but in a few minutes, I'll explain to you it's by no means the exclusive component that we have. Right here, I just talked a little bit about individual departments that forms part of that overview. And again, we list just for the public's edification, the various equipment that we have to maintain. And let me go back, also people forget that our road supervisors and our drainage supervisors, that extends all the way to lower St. Martin, Stevensville, and that's fairly significant. Our field operations, again, that handles the drainage issue. This is one of the photographs that I showed this slide here to all of our public works personnel, and our drainage supervisor happened to sit on this board and said, "What the hell are you showing a canal like that for?" So for his benefit, I showed you an active picture, okay? That's how our canals look when they finish. But again, this just demonstrates just the vastness of the work. Now here's where it becomes very important. How do we pay for that? We have three taxes, sources of revenue that we utilize to maintain those 759 roads, those 600 plus miles of drainage driveways, those 400 miles of roadways, the 45 bridges, to pay all the personnel. The three sources is sales tax district number one, which gives us about $3 million annually. Our drainage maintenance fund, which is a millage, that gives us $2.1 million annually. And then we have our road maintenance millage, which yields about $1.4 million annually. Now, sales tax district number one, what we're voting on April 30th, $3 million. But add up the drainage and road maintenance revenue, and you come up with $3.5 million. So if we were to lose sales tax district number one revenue, we would lose $3 million and only have $3.5 million within which to operate our maintenance program for public works. What does that mean? Well, first, let's break down what the cost is to maintain all those roads and bridges and drainage canals that I referenced, and to maintain all the equipment too. Our salaries for our public works department is $2.5 million annually. Now, don't get a figure and say, okay, he's got 33 36 people divided into 2.5 million, this is how much they get paid. No, that 2.5 includes what? Insurance, retirement, and all the other assessments that we've got that's imposed on us by law. But just the salary and benefits is 2.5 million. That's the cost. Remember, if I don't have sales tax district number 1 revenue, that means after payment of all the salaries and personnel, we would only have $1 million to maintain those 759 roads, those 600 miles of drainage laterals, the 45 bridges, and to purchase and maintain at least all the yellow equipment that we have to do the work. Now, how far can you get with $1 million? This is a old figure, an outdated figure. And when I say outdated, it's pre the Ukraine incident where all the prices went up. Before that, the cost to patch, mill, and overlay a road was $250,000 per mile. To reconstruct a road, $400,000 a mile. To pave and overlay with minimum thickness of asphalt, you don't get much of a life, particularly with the type of traffic our roads accommodate, is $150,000 per mile. Bridge maintenance and repair, we spend on the average of $350,000 a year to inspect and maintain them. And we're required by DOTD rules to inspect our bridges once a year. So if all we had was that $1 million, we wouldn't get very far with our road maintenance. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't get very far if all we had was the 1.1 and 2.4, the 2.5 million. We wouldn't get very far, not with these costs. Personnel, let me tell you about why the personnel is so important. Number one, we need that many people to manage all these roads and bridges and drainage laterals. And I want everybody to understand too, I often say to our public works people that they're the true first responders. Because you see, on the approach of a hurricane or any other major storm, they're the people that's running out and inspecting those 600 miles of drainage laterals, working overtime. They're the ones that are bagging that sand and manning those distribution sites for the sand. When it's freezing weather, like in February 2021, they're the ones that's out there at daybreak, sanding the roads and bridges. In the event of any kind of storm, hurricane, as soon as the winds drop below 45 miles per hour and it's daybreak, they're the first ones out on the road cleaning the roadways. The 759 miles of roads, or 759 roads of 400 plus miles, plus going into every drainage laterals a second time to clear them from any obstructions caused by the storm. Your true first responders, not the only ones, but I call them the true first responders. And remember, this all starts weeks or days in advance of these major weather events. Just the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 days of storms, 1 day each week. Well, the day before, we're doing the same type of stuff. And the day of, all the workers are reporting early. So we've got to have the employees. We've got to have the ability to pay those employees. So we're asking, obviously, for you, for the voters, for the public, to recognize these needs, to recognize and accept the critical aspect of our public works, and to acknowledge the reason we need the revenue from sales tax district number 1. And I will submit to you that if you look at the history of this parish and you look at how we have handled the proceeds we have received from the taxpayers, I think you'd be pleased. In August of last year, we refinanced a bond issue that we had. And I know that you, the board members, are fully cognizant of this. You've got to go through a rating and you sell or refinance bonds. You got to get interviewed by all these guys from Philadelphia, New York, all the investment bankers. My director of finance and I went through that interview process in connection with the review of the bonds for the sale in August of 2021. After that interview process, several hours, and look, they looked at all our budgets, they went over everything. When it was all said and done, they, S&P, assigned St. Martin Parish government a AA stable fund rating, which is the highest for St. Martin Parish government ever. And that is a validation, I will submit to you, that we have astutely and prudently used the tax revenues that the voters have given to us. Let me tell you, during that interview process, not only did they have our budget in advance of that meeting and studied it, but they had all our policies as to how we handle emergencies and how we procure equipment, how we maintain equipment. It was a very complex process. And again, it took several hours, but this was the frame, this was the rating that we received. And part of the things we talked about with them, and I'm going to spend a few moments to talk to you about, is how we select our roads to maintain, how we select roads in what we call our road improvement projects that we try to have every 2 or 3 years. Those 759 roads are evaluated by an independent engineer. The last 2 projects, I think it was Penske, now they're out of business, and now the company that is grading our roads is DDG, and Plans Design Group out of Thibodeau. They look at all our roads and they grade them. How long the road is, the condition of the road, the number of houses on the road, the number of businesses the road serves, and they give it a rating, a number. And then they bring that rating to the administration. We evaluate it with the engineers, then we present it to the council. The point I'm making is we go through a very methodical process when we determine what roads to maintain and when. Okay, and this is kind of a selection grading criteria that we utilize. This slide is intended to kind of clarify a few things. Remember, I've been talking about revenue to support our parish road system and our drainage system. Anytime you see one of these signs that has LA and a number, and you start to want to complain about the condition of that road, don't call the parish, it's not ours. It's a state highway. We're not responsible for state roads. And you know, I say that seriously because 95%, I would submit to you, of complaints we get in parish government about road conditions are state roads, not ours. And I would submit to you that our parish roads are in pretty good shape. Flash back to the previous slide that I talked about as well, the rating system. Somebody asked me, said, well, what would you do other than resign if this tax don't pass? You know, and how would you maintain the roads? Where would you get the money? You'd have to go to your general fund, right? Or you have to go to another fund, right? The answer is no, and here's why. And you're welcome to examine this budget. If y'all can come up with some ideas how we can save money and move money around, I'd be more than happy to listen. But every single fund that we have in the parish government budgets are dedicated funds. Health unit funds, dedicated to health unit endeavors. The millage for fire service district, dedicated to fire trucks. The only 2 general revenue sources that we have in parish government is our general fund revenue with a general alimony tax, a millage, and video poker revenue. You know where the vast majority of the dollars generated for our general fund go to maintain? Anybody got any idea? Jails. We spend more money feeding prisoners than we do anyone else. We got to feed them. We're responsible for that. We're responsible for maintaining the courthouse, the jail for the sheriffs, the offices for the judges, the DA. The DA's been operating at $1 million deficit every year for the last 5 or 6 years. Who do you think has to pay to make that up? You do, the taxpayers, through that general alimony tax, because it's a parish obligation. Coroner's office, parish government's responsibility. And we don't have special revenues funds for that. That's our general fund. That's our video poker funds. And it's pretty tough for us to meet those obligations, but we've done it. We've done okay. But one of the reasons we've done okay and still have been able to maintain our roads, bridges, and other infrastructure is because we have sales tax district number 1 with 1 cent sales tax. Our only sales tax we have for unincorporated areas. It's critical. It's very critical. So, I know y'all got a busy agenda. I'll kind of close it out. A couple things I want you to point out. It's a renewal. It's not a new tax. Okay. And it's specifically for road and bridge and drainage. So, you got all my blood. Yes, remember those days. Yes,
I
sir.
have a question. Do we get any federal money to maintain Parish?
Now, 1 penny. Somebody asked me that. They said, you know, we think you're using some of that federal money that came down with the pandemic, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, they call it, proceeds for that, for roads, and you just switching money around. Well, that's a misconception. I don't know where that came. That's about the 3rd or 4th time that's been asked of me. The ARPA funding that we've got has to be used only for certain endeavors defined by the United States Department of Treasury. It has to be for expenses related to the pandemic, such as healthcare, additional costs for medical services to inmates and things of that nature. What we've done with our ARPA money, we've only gotten 1/2 of it, by the way. What we've done and what the Treasury says we can do is we dedicated it to water improvements throughout the parish, because that's probably one of the biggest problems in the state of Louisiana is quality of water in the rural areas. And second, broadband. 2 weeks ago, the vice president came down and announced the broadband initiative of the federal government in Sunset. And by the way, none of that federal money has been received. It hasn't even been allocated yet. The day after she came, St. Martin Parish government, through its ARPA money, was signing an agreement to start broadband installation. So, and we did that because under the Treasury regulations, we could use the ARPA money, and it's about $4 million that we got in the first pot for water and for broadband. Couldn't use it for roads. And Fund 802, it's right here, it's an ARPA fund that kind of shows you where that money's going. And by the way, if we don't use it right, have a clawback provision, meaning we pay it back, and the SOB that's in charge when the money's misspent goes to jail. So I don't intend to go to jail. Right? My wife may want me to, but anyway, so no, Mike, we don't. Early voting, April 16th. I really encourage everyone to kind of to absorb everything I've indicated. I know I've gone kind of quickly. If any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to go out in the hall and answer those questions. If any of you are a member of an organization that wants to hear more about this, let me know, and we'll come and we'll talk to you about it, because this is a critical tax. Board members, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Steven.
All right.
Join here from you.
Nice seeing you. And I remember those years that you mentioned.
Oh, definitely.
I used to love those long meetings.
Oh,
Charging
yeah.
by the hour. See, so I just sit here all asleep, take a nap, and still make some money.
Just a reminder,
Yeah, that's right. Everybody else is new.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Item D, millage rate for 2022. Adopted the millage rate since we started.
This is not a reassessment year. We're just carrying the same tax millage that we had last year forward to this year.
Okay. We need a motion.
Yes.
The motion by Mr. Clay. Second by Mr. State.
Yes.
Vote. Go back. Motion carried. Item C.
We remove C.
Oh.
We remove it. We remove on C.
Item D. Consider approved Head Start Policy Council recommendation. Enrollment report, satisfaction report, coordinated enrollment campaign, minutes. Motion by Mr. Clay, second by Mr. Potteet, Mr. Durian. All in favor, vote. Motion carried, no nays. Board member request, Mr. Now.
All right. Hopefully it'll be longer than I thought, but anyhow, I'm gonna keep my presentation very short. I worked on last board meeting, came in, I typed everything I had to say. I had documents galore. The documents had come to me by a person or two indirectly who were thinking about filing agreements because of the way that the sales tax management position was quoted. I did say anybody who wants to look at the documents, they can look at them. And then last night, I got an email from the superintendent wanting to speak as soon as we open the agenda item. Parish will let him on his presentation, where did I go wrong, all right? Go ahead.
Okay. I've got a copy of your typed notes from last month, and I went through it bullet by bullet. I have quite a number of things that I find I think are in error. But I'm gonna narrow it down to just a couple of things. And at the last meeting, you indicated that the position was advertised for an accountant, someone with an accounting degree. So I went back and I pulled the advertisement, and actually, on the qualifications, it says bachelor's degree with a major in accounting or experience in sales tax administration. So it was properly advertised. The person that was hired meets that requirement.
He does have a college degree.
So he does, he has,
It's R. It's
he
either or.
has sales tax experience. Back in January, I came to the board, I requested permission to amend the job description. And this is the item that was presented to the board. If you go back to your packet in January, you'll find this item. And it recommends changing that to a manager. And right here, the job description, qualifications, word for what was posted on the advertisement. College degree with major in accounting or experience in sales tax administration. It's so
Sales tax administration. All right.
So what we advertised is what was approved. Okay? The employee that we hired that presented earlier, in the absence of the sales tax administrator in the sales tax department over several months, had experience in administrating. Okay? Taxes were collected from the local businesses. It was broken down according to the formula and the contract that we have with parish government, the sheriff, the cities, the towns, the villages, and dispersed according to that. Okay? So that is sales tax administration experience. During that time, now we did have an issue, a problem in sales tax of roughly a year ago. That was taken care of. I presented everything to the board. I told the board what was going on. Mr. Knott came to the board, recommended that we do an audit to make sure that everything was above board. We hired an auditing firm, an accounting firm out of Lafayette. I don't know if the name is this long, I don't remember it. We've never used them before. I don't know the people, but we were able to get them to come in and do it. They came in, they audited, cost us $6,000 or $8,000. Whatever information they requested, we gave it to them. They interviewed the folks in the sales tax department. Anything they wanted, we opened the door and said, have at it, look at what you need. We We hid nothing, we gave them access to whoever they wanted to during the audit. I'm not gonna tell the auditor how to do their job. They came to us and I said, you tell me what you need, we'll get it for you, we'll make it available. That audit came back with the issue that we had, which was taxes were collected, but they were not sent out to the local governing bodies in a timely manner. So some of it sat in the bank. Mr. Cedars is actually the one who contacted me and indicated that he thought there was a problem. Scheduled a meeting, someone from the sheriff's office came in, someone from parish council came in, city of Robridge was represented, Parks, and possibly I think Henderson maybe. We met with him, we discussed it. Ms. Casey and I met after. She went through, very quickly determined what the issue was. We corrected it. By the following week, we'd scheduled another meeting. Those same people came back, and actually on the first meeting, Mr. Cedars was not there, but he came in for the second one with his CFO, his bean counter. And we presented reports to him. Earlier that day, we had dispersed all of the funds, so they were up to date at that point. We provided all the necessary reporting. They reviewed their reports. Mr. Cedars looked at his person and asked him, is this what you expected? Is this correct? He said, yes, Mr. Cedars. And he left, but I did contact him last week, as well as Sheriff Road, asked him if there were any problems, if they had heard anything, if anybody had contacted him. They both indicated, no, you had a problem, you fixed it, you did it in a timely manner. I haven't gotten any problem. My business office tells me everything is like it's supposed to be. We're collecting actually more money than we expected, because sales tax collections are up. When Mr. Cedars got up and walked out of the room, he looked at Mr. Broussard and I, he said, my CFO tells me we're in good shape. I'm fine, we handled it quicker than we thought, than we expected. I'm satisfied, and he walked out. As far as the hiring process goes, we had 5 applicants. One pulled out before the interview process. We had 4 remaining applicants. We interviewed, and the committee, which is, what we have to do per our consent order, interviewed the applicants, and they recommended Mr. Roberts. And just like I've done with every other position that's come up, if the committee recommended him and he met the qualifications, which he does, because he's administered sales tax, I approved it. I didn't have a reasonable return. So since he's taken over, he's beginning to produce the reports. I haven't done any complaints. The office staff is working well together. If anybody has anything to add to that, you just feel free to do it. But I've met with the staff. We don't have any complaints. We just hired or replaced an opening that we had. Mr. Roberts was a bookkeeper in the business office, because he handles some bond stuff and maintenance, purchase orders and that sort of stuff, and he worked in sales tax. So when he moved up, then there was an opening, and we filled the opening with a former student of mine, who's also the daughter of Mr. Ranella, who used to work in the business office many years ago. So we have advertised it properly. We hired according to the qualifications posted on the advertisement. The department is running and speaking to Sheriff Grove and the parish president Cedars. Both of them told me, we don't have any concerns. We're getting the money we feel we're owed. And they're going to begin to get additional reporting, because we are working with previous sales tax administration, Mr. Rodriguez, to beef up our reporting to the districts. We're going to continue to get quarterly reports every month. We cannot, as mentioned in your talking points last month, at one time they did give a list of taxpayers. This was 20 years ago. But it's illegal to do that. There is a Louisiana revised statute, which I have a copy of right here, that we can give amounts, we can give a breakdown by, like maybe the automobile industry gave this much, and Walmart or whatever, retail sales gave this much, but we cannot list a particular business and give you the name and the amount they paid. That is considered private information. Okay. Now, just as far as the timeline, who was hired and stuff like that, I have a breakdown of all that. We collect 27 million annually through our sales tax department in the parish. Give or take a few dollars, it's about 27 million. So
See that collection for 1 year? How much?
27.
Really?
million.
A little more than that.
You had said 60, but I checked on it today, and it's annually roughly about 27.
Good one.
All right, I got a comment.
Go ahead.
The person we had hired before had a college degree. And then all of a sudden, she comes from a sales tax in Iberia Parish. As a supervisor is what I heard. Wait, that's not the whole thing. The whole problem was, she didn't know what she was doing, because all the money was just sitting in the bank, not distributed to the parish government, the city government, or the sheriff department. So that tells me right there, a college degree doesn't make a person smart. You know, you just gotta get off your behind and go to work and get it done. That's what this little guy's gonna do, I guess. That's all I have on look at.
All right. Good enough.
Okay, I agree with Steve, but the person who was thinking about filing grievance, well, there were actually two. One of them did not apply because felt that the bookkeeper, she was not qualified to be an administrator. All right, so if it is clearly defined, then you will not have a chance of succeeding in the grievance committee, all right? Now, I don't know about some of you, but in the last year, we've had more grievances filed by employees than in the last 21 years. I think you can also go ahead and check the policy on grievance. And I believe we have another one today, right? So I was trying to avoid, and I still am trying to avoid a grievance on this year. Now, people in this parish and in this state have lost all kinds of confidence in the taxes system. Who would have told us that thing Chester City just talked about would have gotten defeated in this parish, road maintenance? Who would have guessed that St. Landry last week had a sales tax, and it got defeated, I think 5-7 to West Baton Rouge had a sales tax renewal. It got defeated. People in this parish are fed up with taxation, all right? We have to rebuild the confidence in the system. Mention a resume. One of the most impressive resumes I've ever seen in this parish was when Rodriguez Matt applied. Tremendous resume. I don't know if they're arguing or not. But he did such a great job that he was promoted to supervisor, from sales supervisor. And then unfortunately, audited some of the wrong businesses, and he was encouraged to leave. Then we go through the process, another great resume. Great resume. And Wanda made a motion to audit. Everybody was concerned about taxation money being misspent. And when that got turned down, their recommendation of an audit or basically an investigation into a resume. All right? People pad the resume. I am not impressed with a resume on results. All right? So, what happened after he assured us that we stored my very fashion so qualified, she abruptly quit. So now this parish has lost confidence in our system. Now maybe if we have a bond issue shortly, or sales tax, maybe the people of town who is going to support that tax? Maybe parks, maybe spend more, I don't know. But we have to rebuild that trust. And the way this was handled is the wrong way to go. I'm asking, I'm not gonna ask you to vote today. I need to go over something, the superintendent said, that next board meeting, I will have a plan to rebuild the trust in this system. I may not have a second, but I will make that motion, and it will be on the mayor agenda. That's it.
So what you trying to say, Mr. Not the committee, don't know how to,
The man did a good job today presenting him, right?
but you
It
saying the
was meant,
committee,
it
you
was
saying
meant
the
as though
committee
he was
doesn't,
applying for a job. We don't hire.
but what you saying is the committee
Any
doesn't
high
allow.
school, any high school kid that knows something about graphic can come in and nicely report. It doesn't impress me. All right? It may have impressed this committee, but it didn't impress me.
Okay, to
Now,
get rid of
that
the committee,
committee, I
you
don't know
wanna
who it
hire
was.
somebody.
Does anybody know the system committee? I can assure you, some of these people
Item
don't
number
belong to
7,
the
we got
committee.
anything for executive session?
Thank you.
Motion to second by Mr. Posey, go to executive session. All in favor?
Yes, sir.
Seven, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Executive session was brief, no recommendation was made. We need a motion for
Motion to accept staff recommendation.
Second.
no motion to say all, vote. No nays, motion carried. Move to adjourn. Motion. Second.
There's a